The class turned to face their new addresser, though of all people, it was one of the few who stood by Angie's side. Kibo, the artist inquired. Don't tell Angie you were lying too. Kibo looked askance. I was not lying. I believed in you, fully and completely. However, as my precious friend, I must request that you not conceal the truth. There is a connection between the crime scene and yourself.
What's that?
Kaede wondered aloud. You may recall my ability to read the ambient makeup of the air, Kibo recounted. Though the function was not used very often, the group did recall him using it during their earlier days in captivity. During the investigation, I noticed unusual readings in the air with Tojo-san's lab.
Probably the lingering poison fumes,
Maki noted. I thought the imbalances seemed familiar, the robot continued. So I made my way to Angie-san's lab. As I surmised, there were similar readings there. At the time, you had just finished mixing new paint, which leads me to believe that the poison that killed Gonta-kun was indeed made in your lab.
Nice one, Robo Boy!
Miu cheered.
You're almost as impressive as something I built myself.
In spite of all this, Angie's smile did not waver. So, any member of the art club is allowed in any other member's lab, remember? Any of them could have done it. That's wrong! Shuichi countered. Your lab door has a lock on it. There's only one copy of that key in the world, and you're the one who has it. No one could go in or out of your lab without your say-so. Are you sure? Angie replied. Kokichi knows how to pick locks, and I'm pretty sure Kirumi knows too. Maybe one of them snuck in and made the poison with my tools to frame me. That doesn't make sense though, the detective disagreed. If Tojo-san made the poison, she wouldn't need to switch the honey jars around. All that would accomplish is risk warning Gonta-kun of her plans. And if Oma-kun was the one to make the poison, he wouldn't have put in the honey at all. If Gonta-kun hadn't shown up, then he would have been the one to drink it, and he would have died. Angie's gaze drew darker than ever. Are you questioning the will of God? The voice of God? It was not Angie who made Gonta drink poison. It was not Angie who brewed poison tea. It was not Angie who brought Gonta to his death. Angie is not the culprit. Angie is not guilty. The artist's voice had grown cold in that last moment. The students were astounded at her transformation. The bright, peppy girl had been replaced with a shell of her former self. Her words lacked heart, passion, emotion. It was as though Angie Onaga was no longer among them, and someone was using her body as a ventriloquist dummy. The dead, expressionless words of the artist chilled the students to the bone. Could they really consider her the killer? Her actions were never directed at Gonta. Her actions were actually rather small. Compared to everything else that had happened before, was this really the same? Was this really a murder? An answer was soon found. Argument armament. Start! You have all invited death. Tragedy. It's what you desire. It's what you seek. Random accidents, bits of happenstance. You allow yourself to be open to them and you let them happen. Gonta died because you allowed him to die. He allowed himself to die. Even if Angie created the poison, she is not a murderer. Death is but a natural progression of the world you have all created here. Because he lived in a world where he was willing to die. Final blow. Angie did not kill him! You cannot call her a culprit!
No, that's wrong.
Break! The student's attention was captured once again, this time by Kaede. Though the pianist had been content to allow Shuichi to take the reins of the trial up until now, she could not bring herself to be silent anymore. Not after what Angie had said.
I know how you feel right now, Angie. It's how I felt when I first saw Momokun's body. You tried to kill Omakun, and Gonta-kun died instead. I get it. You're doing everything you can to distance yourself from what happened. From the moment you saw the body, that's what you wanted more than anything.
Gonta! Why? How? Angie asked of no one. Angie doesn't know what happened. Gonta shouldn't have died. Angie doesn't understand.
But even if you never wanted this, even if Gonta-kun's death was a big mistake,
Kaede struggled with her speech. She believed what she was saying with all her heart, but the words hit very close to home.
you can't just run away and hide. If you do that, you're letting the worst part of you win. If we never found out about what Shirogane did, I would have accepted my guilty verdict. Even now, I still feel like Amamekun's death was my fault. And I accept that part of myself, the ugly side who wanted to kill someone, regardless of how noble I thought the reason was. So please, you can't just lie to yourself about this. It won't make the guilt go away. It only makes it worse. For your own sake, please, just tell the truth.
The artist's head drooped downward, as though it no longer wished to fight against its own weight. Her eyes still dead, Angie spoke, her voice back to normal. Kaede, you understand it better than I ever did. What it means to guide people, to be a voice of reason.
Auntie-san?
The blonde replied. Shuichi? Angie said. This is the part where you summarize the case, right? The detective took a cleansing breath and nodded. Yes. This is the truth of the case! This case began with a plan in mind. The culprit intended to target Omakun by tricking him into consuming poison. Though no direct toxins were available to us, the culprit was able to create a deadly compound using various substances found in their research lab. To ensure Omakun would be the one who ingested the poison, the poisonous concoction was made to resemble honey and placed within one of Gonta-kun's honey jars. The honey jar was stolen from Gonta-kun's research lab and was used to replace the jar of honey already in Tojo-san's lab. Knowing that Omakun had honey with his midday tea, the culprit believed that all they would need to do is wait, and everything else would take care of itself. However, a few things went wrong. The first of which was that they placed the old jar of honey back in Gonta's lab, so he wouldn't notice any missing jars. The problem was that he realized that he now had more honey than he was supposed to have, and so made his way to Tojo-san's lab to investigate. During that time, Tojo-san was preparing Omakun's tea, but unbeknownst to the culprit, she was adding the honey during the brewing process. The hot water vaporized a portion of the poison, and the fumes caused her to lose consciousness. By chance, this was when Gonta-kun entered the room. Realizing something was wrong, he placed Tojo-san off to the side so she could recover comfortably. Then, hoping to uncover the truth behind what happened, Gonta-kun investigated the tea. But that was his last mistake, because he chose to investigate by drinking it. The poison took effect quickly, causing him to react violently and damage the nearby table and china. Shortly afterward, the poison claimed his life, much to the surprise of the culprit. Investigation of the air in both Tojo-san's lab as well as the culprits indicates that there was only one place the poison could have come from. And though there was more than one person who could enter that room, only one possibility makes sense. As I said before, the culprit must be Angie Yonaga, the ultimate artist. Complete! An unspoken agreement made its way across the room. Monokuma took that as a signal to take point once more.
In that case, it's time for the heart-racing excitement as the Blackened and the Spotless finally face off! It's voting time! Who will be chosen as the Blackened? Will you make the right choice or the dreadfully wrong one? What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be?
For the third time, the screens around the room lit up with the image of a roulette wheel. For the third time, it landed on the chosen culprit, Angie. And for the third time, it displayed a single word. Guilty. End of chapter 29.